So for today's Do Now, you can either reply to me in yesterday's Do Now just as a private comment, and that will count as your attendance for today, or you can reply to me in today's Do Now. I don't really care. I'll check both. Does that answer your question, Peyton? Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and just jump in. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about the stuff we've done so far and learned so far relating to cigarette butts. And so today, we are in the knowledge building phase of our problem solving process, and that is why we have Nick here. So Nick, if you want to jump on, you can either unmute yourself, or if you want to share your camera, you can do that too. If not, that's fine. But feel free to jump on in and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello all. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Can you see me, or is the camera working? The camera not working?
Let's see here.
I don't know if you necessarily need to see me, but I'm here smiling, happy to be here with you all. But I did kind of have a bit of time to read over your guys' questions. Looks like we've got some good deep thoughts, and I'm happy to kind of take those on however you'd like to go at them, Jamie.
Should we start with a little bit of background? So this is pretty much all that I've told them about you guys. I don't know if you can still see my presentation on the screen, but I just read them the About section from your website.
Cool. Yes. So the Where Do Butts Go positive activism campaign is kind of what I referred to it as. It all started a couple years ago when I was doing some. Oh, look! I feel like I'm on the screen now. It's working now. Not fuzzy lines. Anyways,
it's working now. Nice bow tie.
Thanks. Well, now it went away, but yeah. So it all started a couple years ago. I was doing property management work for a client where I was consistently going to a parking lot and picking up trash for the week, and then I would do the parking lot in the back alleyway where the employees kind of had their breaks and often would smoke cigarettes or whatever. And I would consistently pick up these cigarette butts, and instead of getting upset about it, I tried to just kind of smile, say hi to the people that were taking their breaks, and just try to just kind of show them that I'm a real person, smiling, picking up their waste, and hoped that that would change their behavior. So that was kind of the start of the campaign. And then it evolved when I saw just the reality of the issue of the plastic in the ocean. Just in that it's bigger than even cigarette butts. It's really a single-use waste issue, which is basically what a cigarette filter is a single-use kind of plastic item. And then I kind of took to the streets in a silent protest, and I would go out in a costume and try to raise awareness to the issue by just once again taking it head on and solving the problem creatively and with a smile, and in public places like around the Rocky Stadium during before game time. And then it just evolved where I started getting more of a community around it and bringing people out, and we would do more group cleans. 3 years ago, we did our first kind of big cleanup on National Kick Butts Day, which is actually kind of today. It's now Take on Tobacco Day, but it's a day of activism to empower youth to stand up to big tobacco. And really, my kind of point of it was to stand up to big tobacco no matter who you are, and stand up for our earth no matter who you are, in that, single-use waste and tobacco filters kind of are polluting our earth in a way that affects us all. So We can all do something by just doing whatever we can and inspiring somebody else to do something a little bit more. So that really took hold last year when this campaign evolved to include Coors Field and Red Rocks. They took on cigarette waste diversion at their venues. They're teamed up with Airmark, the concession and kind of venue service provider. They teamed up together teamed up with us to divert cigarette waste from their existing smoking sections. They already have like receptacles in place. So they were able to, instead of just going ahead and throwing those cigarette butts away, they went ahead and threw them in a 55-gallon steel drum that we had local artists beautify. So we kind of wanted to add to the movement this sense of you're doing more than just dealing with waste. You're like, you're being part of a movement. You're really doing more to inspire people to think about their own wastes, be it cigarette filters or single-use coffee stirrers or some other single-use thing that they might personally use. But yeah, that's kind of the start of the campaign and its evolution. We're now getting ready to work with the Denver International Airport to host a pilot program at their kind of main concourse to encourage and educate their guests really about where the appropriate place to consume a cigarette or use a cigarette, and then to educate them to where to properly put them once they're done. So they're not just throwing it in the street, or no, they're not throwing it into one of the trash cans and lighting those on fire or something crazy ridiculous like that. So yeah, that's a lot of information. Hopefully it was enough.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you guys submitted your questions, so whoever wants to start, you can feel free to ask your questions in the chat.
And I have some of them here if you wanted me to just kind of read one and answer one.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So one question was just, what can we do to prevent people from coming down to Audubon and smoking their cigs and throwing them out? So I had a question related to that, just a follow-up question, and just that, is there designated smoking areas for people at the Audubon Center already?
I'm going to wait and see if the student answers before.
Yeah.
So have you guys noticed at the Audubon designated smoking areas? Yeah, as he says, no smoking areas. Not really.
Okay. Well, I guess that's also part of an image thing with a lot of venues. In speaking with like the Denver Public Library, they didn't really want to host cigarette receptacles because of their kind of value, and they didn't want to encourage people to smoke anywhere near the library.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a naive way to approach this, I think, because unfortunately, there's 12% or 14% nationwide that smokes. I haven't checked the average recently, but on a nationwide level, it's still a small percentage, but it's a percentage of people, and that's a waste stream that we kind of have to deal with until we figure out what to do with the filter. So I don't know.
It seems like the Audubon expressed a similar concern.
Yeah.
At least in the beginning of this, they were sort of opposed to trying to deal with the source of the issue or the root cause, because they felt like it was the smokers who should be dealing with it, not them.
So it could be a fun opportunity for them. So the Audubon Center is really big into birds, right?
Yep.
So you can kind of use the whole cigarette waste thing as another educational source towards aviatry, towards bird lovers. There's a couple studies that I have on my website that the University of Mexico did in relation to the urban finch, and it's kind of cool. Little drop of knowledge where they did two studies. The first study included like finding bird nests, and they started correlating the urban finch using cigarette waste to fumigate their nests. So the nests with more cigarette filters in them had less dead ticks and parasites in them after they were studied. So it showed that they were actually like preventing infiltration of parasites and bugs by using cigarette filters as a fumigation tool. But then the second study that they did showed that the chicks that were brought up around cigarette filters were more prone to chromosomal defects, which had adverse effects when they were older. So really, the cigarette filter, although they're using it as a tool, could be a weapon against them and their evolution in the future. So that's like one study with one bird, and it's the way it's being affected by cigarette filters. So I think you could propose, hey, let's at least get one cigarette receptacle out here. I know we don't want people smoking, but it could be a tool for people where instead of throwing it on the ground where it's unsightly and could be picked up by birds, or instead of just throwing it in the trash can where, it could be, there's better things you can do with cigarette butts than throw them in the trash can, but the trash can is better than throwing them on the ground, so. But having a receptacle there that said, hey, the urban finch would be better off if you just took care of your cigarette butt first, and then kind of going with that approach, maybe the Audubon Center might see more of a value in it, and not necessarily is it just being something catering to smokers or something like of that nature.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is a good segue actually into our current proposal. So this is sort of where we're at right now. Can you see the document that I have up here?
Yep, I've got it here.
Cool. Izzy, do you feel like jumping on and explaining the proposal over the mic? Just let me know if you need me to scroll or anything.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Sorry. So it's been a while since I presented this, so it may be weird, but so our background is very similar to yours. Pretty much our first day at Audubon, we had to go around and pick up cigarette butts, and like a certain amount of time, I think it was like 5 or 10 minutes. And in that time, we collected like a whole bin full of discarded cigarette butts on the ground at Audubon in the parking lot, which, like I said in the comments, you can also find more cigarette butts like along the trail and like Peyton said, around the bathrooms. But so that's one thing that one of the Audubon employees said, her name's Emily, is that, like one main source of the cigarette butt litter is from Lockheed Martin employees who are not allowed to smoke on like the Lockheed Martin parking lot. So I come down to Audubon since it's just across the street. So me and my group decided to try to research something that we could use to try to get adults coming down to the Audubon parking lot to smoke to, want to throw away their litter. And so we just, through random search, we discovered the ballot bin. And so that really inspired us to be like, well, how do we, how do we get this? And this is really interesting. And we, looked into how successful it was in Europe, and it's been very successful. And I've even seen this on Instagram. So it was very interesting to us, like how it worked. And, the past results, and we think that this could have huge success at Audubon, especially since it's not like a huge parking lot. It'll be very noticeable. And so, you know, what we're trying to figure out now is how to raise money for it, where to place it, where like the best placement would be in the parking lot, as well as just what else we need to take into account to get people to actually use it. So I think while you were talking, after you started talking, I added another comment about, you know, like your psychological approach that you've used. So that's one thing that we were wondering is like, how do we get people? Because one thing that Emily was mentioning is that a lot of people just smoke in their car and then they like, you know, since they're in a rush or whatever, they just throw it out their window. So how do we get people to want to get out of their car to, you know, throw away their cigarette butt? So.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of that just stems from the education element of this whole thing. People still are under the impression that these cigarette butts decompose and that they consist of natural fibers. You know, there's a lot of common misconceptions about cigarette filters that I think the education side of things will change. And unfortunately, that comes with, having receptacles available for the people that use cigarettes, because they need someplace to put the trash. And I think the ballot box is a really cool method because it gets your attention, just like kind of the ways I was trying to do stuff, you know, by picking up cigarette butts in costume. It calls attention and makes you think a little bit more and really get involved with the issues. So having a ballot bin on site, I think, is a great idea. And then just the kind of placement of things definitely affects consumer behavior. There's one study that shows, like, from Keep America Beautiful, if you have one receptacle every 30 feet, you know, people are more prone to actually dispose of their cigarette waste properly. So having more in certain situations can be beneficial. For this one, I really think it's about the educational element and, you know, making it more than just a cigarette receptacle, you know, but like you're saying, use a ballot bin and then have like a cool display, you know, educate about the bird element, educate about the composition of a filter and the 12,000, you know, cellulose acetate fibers that make up a filter, 12,000 plus. There's studies about the ways that they affect our grasslands and our like sprouts of our plant life, basically. So I think having an educational element. I also have worked with groups that use the pocket ashtray, but I just have a couple of examples of these pocket ashtrays.
Nice.
So these are kind of a tool for more of an individual, at like an individual level. So some of these were given to me to go and like hand out at like festivals or gatherings, branded by the festival hosts. This kind of hard plastic style was given to me by Keep America Beautiful. But the whole point is to take it to an individual level, kind of like the Audubon was saying, and making it more the responsibility of the smoker to deal with their waste stream. So, I mean, having a combination of those tools. So one thing you can kind of do is propose maybe Lockheed Martin sponsors some pocket ashtrays or even sponsors your ballot box because their employees seem to wander over maybe to enjoy the birds or maybe to enjoy their break a little bit differently. But I think like getting them involved as somebody and saying, hey, you guys care because you appreciate this land and the wildlife that lives on it just as much as we do. Let's protect it by dealing with our waste properly and kind of going at it more of this team approach and really making it about what it is like saving our planet. And it's, hate to be preachy like that, but it's if you look at the studies, the whole toxic filter thing is definitely a way of something that needs to change. So I did see like a question about making them illegal, and there's like some weird regulations in Colorado right now that kind of makes it hard to do so at a state level as far as single-use filters go. They are made of a plastic derivative, cellulose acetate, or it's just another petroleum-based plastic. But you can't actually ban single-use plastic. You can't ban plastic items in Colorado. There's a preemption ban against plastics. That's
So just to jump in for 1 sec, this is what the other 10th grade class is working on right now. They're working on a petition against that preemption ban.
Yeah.
Because they're focusing more on straws, single-use straws as their issue.
Okay. Yeah, so that's, I mean, same deal, but it's just that we can't do it on a state level yet. But you know, we have like a representative, Diana DeGette, that's really big against big tobacco. She was big against the flavored jewel pods and things like that. And we're trying to bring it to her level to look into what we can do against single-use filters, because they're an issue with the cigarettes of old, and they're an issue with this cigarette of the future, the e-cigarette, if that's what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So those pods are really like even worse, because those are full-on plastic with hazardous waste inside of them, because that nicotine that they hold is, if you look at like Colorado's recycling ordinance, they have like strict rules against e-smoking waste. So that's kind of like a crazy new thing to deal with too. Anyways.
Well, we are pretty close to the end of our time for this live stream, but Nick, would you be open to students contacting you by email to ask their other questions that we didn't have time to get to? Or
yeah, absolutely. Sorry if I kind of rambled on, everyone.
No, that was super useful. Thank you so much for your help on our project. I think we've got a lot of good ideas moving forward. So students who were in here participating during the live session, you guys just need to write a 3-sentence reflection, including at least one thing that you learned from Nick and at least one idea for our butt project in light of this discussion. Anyone who's watching the recording of this session, if you guys could please write 3 main points from the discussion and then also complete the other part of the assignment that I just explained. But thanks again, Nick, for being here, and thank you, 10th graders, for being here too.
Thank you guys for having me, and thank you for caring about our Earth and about cigarette butts. As lame as they are.